stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber and tried to keep his voice steady. This was the 5th time he had come before these beings to ask for help. The 5th time he had explained that human colonies were under attack. The 5th time he had requested fair trade agreements and basic protection. The chamber was enormous, built to accommodate hundreds of different species. Crystal pillars reached up toward a domed ceiling that showed the stars beyond. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in curved rows, their forms ranging from insect-like creatures to beings made of pure energy. At the center sat Overseer, a tall figure whose skin shifted colors as he spoke. "Ambassador," said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "we have reviewed your petition. Again, the Council's position remains unchanged." Felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his expression neutral. "Overseer, with respect, the situation has grown worse. Our colony worlds are being raided regularly. These aren't simple pirates. These are organized military strikes." A harsh laugh cut through the chamber. R, the military commander of the Confederation, rose from his seat. His species looked almost reptilian, with dark scales and eyes that reflected the light like mirrors. "Military strikes? Your primitive vessels barely qualify as spacecraft, human. Perhaps if you spent less time complaining and more time building proper defenses, you wouldn't need to beg for protection." Several representatives made sounds that had learned to recognize as laughter. His hands curled into fists at his sides, but he forced himself to breathe slowly. "Commander R," said, keeping his tone respectful, "the Confederation has technology centuries beyond ours. Your ships attack our agricultural settlements. They target civilian populations. Under galactic law, this should warrant Council intervention." "Galactic law applies to recognized powers," another representative chimed in. "Humanity has been part of this Council for barely 30 years. You are children in galactic terms." "Children who die when your ships fire on them," shot back, his controls slipping. "Children who burned when weapons hit their schools." Raised a hand for silence. "Ambassador, the Council sympathizes with your losses. However, what you describe sounds like a territorial dispute. Such matters are typically resolved between the parties involved." "A territorial dispute," his voice rose despite himself. "They're massacring civilians." "That is your interpretation," R said smoothly. "The Confederation views the outer sectors as unclaimed territory. If humans choose to settle in contested zones, they accept the risks." Looked around the chamber. Some representatives avoided his gaze. Others watched with what might have been pity. None looked like they planned to help. On the far edge of human space, Governor Hayes stood in the command center of New Haven Colony and watched the screens with growing dread. Red warning lights flashed across every display. The colony's defense system, basic compared to what the older species possessed, had detected incoming ships. "How many?" she asked her security chief. "At least 15, Governor, heavy cruiser class there." Stomach dropped. New Haven was primarily an agricultural colony. They had 6,000 people, most of them families. Their defense consisted of a handful of outdated patrol ships and a planetary shield that could maybe hold for an hour under sustained fire. "Sound the evacuation alarm," she ordered. "Get everyone to the underground shelters, now." The alarms began to wail across the colony. Watched the screens as people ran from their homes, parents carrying children, teachers leading students from the schools. The shelters had been built into the bedrock beneath the main settlement. They could hold the entire population if needed. "Governor, incoming transmission," her communications officer said. "It's the fleet." "Put it through." A face appeared on the screen, like R, but younger. "Human settlement, you are occupying territory. You have 10 minutes to surrender all colonial assets and board your transport ships. Compliance is not optional." "This is Governor Hayes. New Haven is a registered human colony recognized by the Galactic Council. You have no legal claim here." The smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "The Council is not here, Governor. We are 10 minutes." The screen went dark. "How long until everyone is in the shelters?" asked. "We need at least 20 minutes, maybe 30. Looked at the defensive readout. Their planetary shield was already powering up. "Get them underground as fast as you can and send a distress signal to Earth. Tell them what's happening." 8 minutes later, the ships opened fire. The planetary shield held at first, absorbing the initial barrage. But the had brought serious firepower. Energy weapons hammered against the shield, each impact sending shockwaves through the colony. Buildings shook, windows shattered. "Shield at 70%, someone called out. Watch the evacuation numbers. They still had 2,000 people above ground. The schools had been the priority, getting the children to safety first. But that meant many adults were still exposed. "Shield at 40%. The ships adjusted their fire pattern, concentrating on a single point. It was a standard tactic, one that human military planners had warned about. Focus enough power on one spot and even the best shields would fail. "Shield failing, 30 seconds until breach." "Keep moving, people," shouted into her communicator. "Don't stop." The shield collapsed with a sound like breaking glass. The ships shifted targets immediately, and their next volley hit the colony directly. The northern residential sector vanished in a ball of fire. The central hospital took a direct hit, its structure collapsing in seconds. One of the schools, still in the process of evacuating, disappeared beneath a barrage of energy bolts. Watch the casualty reports climb. 300, 500, 1,000. The underground shelters sealed automatically, protecting those who had made it inside. But thousands remained above, caught in the open as the ships methodically destroyed every major structure in the colony. By the time the attack ended, 20 minutes later, New Haven had lost over 3,000 people. The colony's infrastructure lay in ruins. Fires burned across what had been peaceful farmland just an hour before. Stood in the command center, tears streaming down her face as she read the final casualty list. So many children, so many families. In the Galactic Council chambers, communicator buzzed. He pulled it out, saw the message, and felt the blood drain from his face. Noticed his expression. "Ambassador, is something wrong?" Looked up at the assembled representatives. At R, who watched him with barely concealed satisfaction. At whose sympathy was clearly limited to words. At all the species who had sat here and refused to help while human colonies burned. "New Haven colony just suffered a major attack," said quietly. "Preliminary reports indicate over 3,000 dead, many of them children." "That is tragic," said. "The Council offers its thoughts and condolences." "Thoughts and condolences," repeated slowly. He looked at R. "Your ships did this." "Prove it," R replied calmly. Stood there for a long moment, something cold and hard settling in his chest. When he spoke again, his voice was completely calm. "As of this moment, humanity withdraws from all Galactic Council agreements and treaties. We will handle our own affairs from here forward." The chamber erupted in confused murmuring, leaned forward. "Ambassador, that is a drastic decision. Perhaps we should discuss this further." "There's nothing to discuss," said. He looked around the chamber one last time. "You had your chance to stand with us. You chose not to. We'll remember that." He turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, the representatives began to argue among themselves. None of them tried to stop him. As left the building, he activated his secure communicator. "This is Ambassador. Authorization code Alpha 77. Message for Earth Command. They want war. Give it to them." 3 weeks after humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, the first strange reports began to circulate through galactic communication networks. Human merchant ships had stopped appearing at major trade stations. The regular cargo runs that had connected human space with the rest of the galaxy simply ended. Station masters tried to contact their human business partners and received no response. Human diplomatic channels went silent. Embassies closed overnight, their staff vanishing without explanation. Messages sent to human colonies bounced back as. It was as if humanity had simply disappeared. In the Confederation's capital world, Commander R sat in a strategy meeting with his senior officers. A holographic display showed the border regions between and human space. "The humans have retreated," his second-in-command reported. "All their patrol ships have withdrawn. Long-range sensors show minimal activity in their outer colonies." R smiled. As expected, they finally understand their place. The attack on New Haven taught them a valuable lesson. "Should we press our advantage? Their territory contains several resource-rich systems." "Not yet," R said, though the idea clearly pleased him. "Let them cower for a few more weeks. Then we'll begin annexing their outer colonies. By the time we're finished, humanity will be reduced to there and nothing more." At the Galactic Council, Overseer reviewed the same reports with growing unease. Something about humanity's silence bothered him. "Have we received any communication from Earth?" he asked his aide. "None, Overseer. Ambassador has not responded to any of our messages. All official human channels are closed." "What about unofficial channels? Surely someone maintains contact with human friends or business partners." "Those have gone silent as well. It's complete radio silence." Stared at the star map on his desk. In 30 years of working with humans, he had learned one thing: they didn't give up easily. Their withdrawal felt wrong somehow, too quiet, too complete. "Keep trying to establish contact," he ordered. "I want to know what they're doing." What humanity was doing would have terrified him. On Earth, Admiral Crane stood in the war room beneath North American Defense Command. Dozens of officers worked at stations around her, coordinating the largest military mobilization in human history. "Status report," she ordered. "All reserve fleets have been activated," her operations officer replied. "We have 400 combat vessels ready for deployment, with another 200 in final prep stages." "Troop transport." "Ready. We can move 200,000 Marines within 48 hours." Studied the holographic battle map that floated above the central table. Red markers showed military installations. Blue markers showed human fleet positions, currently hidden in deep space far from any trade routes or sensor nets. "What about the new systems?" Dr. Vincent Park stepped forward. He was a thin man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his work over the past 5 years had been revolutionary. "The upgraded FTL drives are operational on all flagships. We can now jump with pinpoint accuracy, even inside a system's gravity well. They won't see us coming until we're right on top of them." "Weapons." "Kinetic systems are fully deployed. Rail guns, mass drivers, and missile pods. Our ships are loaded with enough conventional firepower to level a small moon." Vincent pulled up a secondary display. "They rely on energy shields. Their doctrine assumes long-range energy weapon exchanges. They're not prepared for solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds." Allowed herself a small smile. "They think we're primitive." "They're about to learn the difference between primitive and practical," Vincent replied. In another part of the facility, Captain Jason Brooks inspected his ship. The UHSF Defiant had been a standard cruiser 3 weeks ago. Now it bristled with weapons that would have been illegal under Council regulations. "Sir, the retrofit is complete," his executive officer reported. "We've got 8 rail gun batteries, 20 missile tubes, and the new electronic warfare suite." Jason ran his hand along one of the rail gun mounts. These weapons were simple compared to exotic energy weapons the advanced species used, but they were devastatingly effective. A solid tungsten slug accelerated to a fraction of light speed didn't care about shields or armor. It simply punched through. "How's the crew?" he asked. "Ready, sir. Eager, actually. Word about New Haven spread fast." Jason nodded grimly. Every member of his crew had seen the images from the colony. Burned schools, collapsed hospitals, bodies pulled from rubble that had made it personal. "Good, we ship out in 6 hours. Make sure everyone gets some rest." Across human space, similar preparations were. Every colony, every station, every ship had mobilized. Civilian factories had converted to military production. Mining operations focused on extracting materials for weapons and ammunition. Humanity had spent 30 years in the galactic community watching and learning. They had studied how other species fought their wars. They had noted the weaknesses, the assumptions, the gaps in doctrine. The advanced species fought wars like duels, honorable, structured, limited. They had rules about civilian targets and proportional response. They fought for territory or resources with the understanding that wars eventually ended in negotiation. Humanity had different ideas about war. Hayes, promoted to Colonial Defense Coordinator after New Haven, worked from a bunker on Earth coordinating with the surviving colonies. Her role was to ensure every human settlement could defend itself or evacuate quickly if needed. "The outer colonies have been reinforced," her assistant reported. "We've installed additional shields and defense platforms. Every settlement has underground shelters with supplies for 6 months." "What about evacuation plans?" "Every colony has transport ships on standby. At the first sign of attack, civilians get evacuated immediately." Thought about New Haven. about the people who hadn't made it to the shelters in time. Make sure the evacuation drills continue. I want everyone to know exactly where to go and how fast they need to move. She pulled up the tactical display showing human fleet positions. Blue markers clustered at strategic points, hidden and waiting. The plan was aggressive, brutal, and completely against everything the Galactic Council considered acceptable warfare. She didn't care. The Council had made their choice when they refused to help. On the border, long-range sensors finally detected something unusual. Human ships appeared briefly on scanners at the edge of space, then vanished again. The officer monitoring the sensors sent a report to his superiors, nodding the contacts. His supervisor dismissed it as sensor ghosts or perhaps a small patrol. Nothing to worry about. He was wrong. Admiral Crane received the signal she had been waiting for. All fleet elements were in position. Every ship, every marine, every weapons system was ready. She opened a channel to all human military forces. Her face appeared on screens across dozens of ships and hundreds of installations. This is Admiral Crane to all commands. You know what the did to New Haven. You've seen what the Galactic Council thinks of us. They believe we're weak, primitive. They think we'll accept their attacks and beg for mercy. She paused, her expression hard. They're wrong. We offered peace. We tried diplomacy. We asked for justice. They gave us nothing but contempt and violence, so now we give them war, real war, human war. She looked directly into the camera. We're not fighting for territory. We're not fighting for resources. We're fighting to show the galaxy that humanity will never be victims again. We're fighting so that no colony ever suffers what New Haven suffered, and we're fighting to win. Her hand moved to the command console. All units execute Operation Payback. Show them what humans do when you push us too far. Across human space, ships jumped into FTL. Not along the established trade routes where sensors could track them, not following the predictable patterns other species used. They appeared inside space at 17 different locations simultaneously. Military installations, supply depots, command stations. Every target had been carefully selected for maximum strategic impact. They had no warning. One moment their space was empty. The next, human warships materialized at close range and opened fire. Captain Jason Brooks watched his tactical display as the Defiant emerged from FTL barely 300 kilometers from a. Before the base's weapons could even charge, his rail guns were firing. Tungsten slugs tore through the shields like they weren't there. They had designed their defenses for energy weapons, not solid projectiles moving at 30,000 kilometers per second. The base's hull ruptured in a dozen places. Atmosphere vented into space. Secondary explosions rippled through the structure. Target destroyed, his weapons officer reported, moving to secondary targets. 3 cruisers were trying to launch from their docking bays. The Defiant's missiles reached them first, slamming into their hulls before their shields could fully activate. All 3 ships broke apart, their reactors going critical. Sir, detecting multiple enemy vessels converging on our position. Let them come, Jason said calmly. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, fire at will. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, there was a debris field and 7 enemy ships had been destroyed. The Defiant had taken minor damage to its forward armor but remained fully operational. Similar scenes played out across space. Human ships struck hard and fast, then jumped away before enemy reinforcements could arrive. In the capital, alarms screamed as reports flooded in. Commander R rushed to the command center, his confidence from earlier completely gone. Report, he shouted. 17 installations hit simultaneously, his operations officer reported, his voice shaking. Supply depots, communications relays, we've lost contact with our entire border defense network. R stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Red markers blinked across the map, each one representing a destroyed or damaged facility. How many ships did they use? We don't know, sir. They appeared without warning, attacked, and jumped away before our response forces could engage. We're estimating at least 50 vessels, possibly more. 50 ships shouldn't be able to cause this much damage. R's claws dug into the console. What about our fleet? Where are our defenders? Trying to respond, sir, but the humans aren't following any predictable pattern. They're hitting targets across 3 sectors. Our forces can't be everywhere at once. A new alarm sounded. "Sir, we have incoming reports from the system. Human ships just destroyed the orbital defense platform and are engaging the local fleet." "The system, that's 50 light years behind our forward positions." R's eyes widened as the implications hit him. "They're not just attacking our borders, they're going deep into our territory." He grabbed a communicator. "Get me the Galactic Council, now." While R scrambled to respond, Admiral Crane stood in Earth's war room and watched the tactical updates flow in. Every attack had been successful. Casualty reports showed minimal human losses compared to devastating damage. "Phase 1 complete," her operations officer announced. "All strike teams have reported in. Total losses, 43 military installations, 27 ships destroyed, 18 more damaged. Our losses, 2 ships with moderate damage, 37 personnel wounded, 4 killed." Felt the weight of those 4 deaths but pushed the feeling aside. There would be time to mourn later. Begin Phase 2, start the blockade operations. Across space, human ships took up new positions along major trade routes. Any merchant vessel attempting to travel was intercepted and boarded. The cargo was scanned and confiscated. The crews were placed in escape pods and sent toward the nearest world while their ships were destroyed. Captain Jason Brooks piloted the Defiant toward a cargo hauler near the Meridian Trade Junction. The massive ship tried to run, but human engines were faster now. Within minutes, the Defiant had matched course and locked weapons. "Vessel, cut your engines and prepare to be boarded," Jason broadcast. The cargo ship's captain appeared on screen, his scales pale with fear. "We are civilians. This is a violation of every galactic law." "You should have thought about that before your military killed our civilians," Jason replied coldly. "You have 30 seconds to comply or we will disable your ship by force." The cargo ship's engines powered down. Jason sent over a boarding team led by Commander Lisa Grant. She was a compact woman with dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. Her team moved through the ship with military efficiency, scanning every container and checking every system. "Captain, you need to see this," Lisa called over the comm. Jason reviewed the data she sent. The cargo manifest showed agricultural equipment and medical supplies, but the actual cargo included military-grade power cells, weapons components, and classified sensor technology. "Looks like your civilians are supplying your military," Jason said to the captain. "That makes you a legitimate target." "Please, we were just following orders." "So were the pilots who bombed New Haven." Jason cut the channel and opened a new one to his weapons officer. "Evacuate the crew to escape pods, then destroy the ship." 20 minutes later, the cargo hauler was debris, and its crew was floating toward the nearest planet in emergency pods. The Defiant moved on to the next target. This pattern repeated across dozens of systems. Trade ground to a halt. Supply lines broke down. Their military found itself short on crucial materials while trying to defend against an enemy that struck without warning. At the Galactic Council, Overseer received R's desperate transmission. The commander appeared on the screen, his earlier arrogance completely gone. "Overseer, you must intervene. The humans are attacking us without provocation." "Without provocation," kept his voice neutral. "Commander, you attacked their colony 3 weeks ago. That was a territorial dispute. This is total war. They're destroying our infrastructure, blockading our trade routes, targeting civilian shipping." "Have they attacked civilian population centers?" R hesitated. "No, but..." "Have they targeted hospitals or schools?" "They're crippling our economy." Leaned forward. "Commander R, I suggest you contact the humans and negotiate a ceasefire. The Council cannot intervene in a conflict you started." "But we're losing. You have to stop them." "The same way we stopped you from attacking New Haven." Let that sink in. "You should have considered the consequences before you acted, Commander." He ended the transmission and sat back, deeply troubled. He had warned the Council that dismissing humanity was a mistake. Now the galaxy was learning exactly what kind of mistake it had been. In Earth's war room, Dr. Vincent Park briefed Admiral Crane on the next phase of operations. "We've identified 32 key industrial facilities in space. These factories produce everything from ship components to weapon systems. If we hit them, we can knock out their ability to rebuild." "What about civilian casualties?" "These are all military industrial targets. We've timed the strikes for night shifts when staffing is minimal. We're also sending advance warnings, giving workers time to evacuate. Nodded, proceed, but make sure those warnings are sent. We're not them. The strikes began at dawn across the industrial worlds. Human ships appeared in orbit and began precise bombardments. But 15 minutes before each attack, evacuation alarms sounded and workers fled the targeted facilities. A factory supervisor on the planet watched in shock as his entire facility was destroyed by kinetic strikes from orbit. The building collapsed in sections, machinery pulverized by the impact. But his workers stood safely 2 kilometers away, watching the destruction. "They warned us," he said to his assistant. "The humans actually warned us." "Why would they do that?" "Because they're not trying to kill us. They're trying to destroy our ability to fight them." He looked at the ruined factory. "And it's working." Commander R stood in his command center and watched the casualty reports climb. Not the military casualties, those were bad enough, but the economic casualties. The cost of destroyed infrastructure, lost trade, and crippled industry. "How long before we can rebuild our border defenses?" he asked his chief engineer. 6 months, maybe longer. The humans destroyed our primary manufacturing centers. We'll have to import components from allied species, and with our trade routes blocked. "How did this happen?" R's voice was quiet but dangerous. "They're supposed to be primitive. Their ships are outdated. Their technology is centuries behind ours." "Their technology is different, not inferior," the engineer replied carefully. "They don't use energy shields or beam weapons like we do. They use kinetic weapons, physical armor, electronic warfare. It's crude but effective." "More than effective," R admitted bitterly. "They're destroying us." A communications officer interrupted. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the human fleet." "Put it through." Admiral Crane's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but determined. Behind her, R could see a command center full of activity. "Commander R, I'm Admiral Crane of the United Human Space Force. I think it's time we talked." "What do you want?" R demanded. "I want you to surrender, immediately and unconditionally." "Never. The Confederation will not bow to humans." "Then we'll continue destroying your military capability until you have no choice." His expression didn't change. "You attacked New Haven. You killed 3,000 people, many of them children. You did it because you thought we were weak. We are stronger than you." "Are you?" gestured to someone off-screen. A new display appeared, showing real-time footage of military installations burning. "Commander, in the past 6 hours, we've destroyed 40% of your border defense fleet. We've blockaded your major trade routes. We've eliminated your primary industrial base. And we've done all this with less than a third of our total military strength." R felt sick. "A third." "We have another 300 ships ready to deploy if needed. We have ground forces prepared to occupy your colonies. We have weapons systems we haven't even used yet." Leaned forward. "You thought we were weak because we tried diplomacy first. You mistook patience for inability." "What do you want from us?" "Justice. Your leadership will stand trial for war crimes. You will pay reparations to New Haven, and you will agree to council oversight of your military for the next 50 years. His voice hardened. "These terms are not negotiable. The council will never approve such terms." "The council doesn't get a vote. This is between us and you, Commander. You started this war. We're finishing it. The only question is how much more of your Confederation needs to burn before you accept reality." R looked around his command center. His officers watched him, waiting for orders. He thought about the destroyed installations, the crippled economy, the fleets that couldn't respond fast enough to human hit-and-run tactics. He thought about New Haven and the price of underestimating humanity. "I need time to consult with my government." "You have 24 hours, said. "After that, we begin targeting your secondary military installations. And Commander, every day you delay, the price goes up." The transmission ended. R stood alone in his command center, facing the ruins of his confidence and the reality of human warfare. Meanwhile, Captain Jason Brooks and Commander Lisa Grant sat in the Defiance mess hall, sharing a quiet meal between patrols. "Do you think they'll surrender?" Lisa asked. "Eventually, they don't have a choice." Jason pushed food around his plate. "But even when they do, this isn't really over." "What do you mean?" "The galaxy is watching. Every species that dismissed us, that laughed when we asked for help, they're all seeing what happens when you push humans too far. He met her eyes. They'll remember this. The question is whether they learn the right lesson. Which is that we wanted peace, that we tried everything else first, that this was their choice, not ours. Jason set down his fork. Because if they just learn to fear us, then we've created a bigger problem than we solved. Lisa was quiet for a moment. 3,000 people died on New Haven. Don't we deserve some justice? Yes, but justice and revenge aren't the same thing. We need to make sure we don't cross that line. On Earth, in her private office, Admiral Crane reviewed the casualty reports one more time. 4 humans dead, 37 wounded. Compared to the devastation they had inflicted on it seemed impossibly low. But she knew those 4 deaths by name. She had already written letters to their families. She would attend their funerals when this was over. The price of war was always measured in lives. The trick was making sure those lives bought something worth having. She pulled up the diplomatic channels and prepared the next message. Not to but to the Galactic Council. It was time they understood exactly what humanity expected going forward. 2 months after the first human attacks, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. Representatives from 200 species filled the chamber, their voices creating a storm of worried conversation. 3 species had formally requested council protection from potential human aggression. 5 more had sent private messages, asking what guarantees existed against human expansion. Overseer called for order. The chamber slowly quieted. Representatives, we gather to discuss the ongoing conflict between humanity and the Confederation. He pulled up a holographic display showing the current state of space. Half the map was colored red, indicating systems where military capability had been destroyed or severely damaged. As you can see, the situation has developed beyond anyone's expectations. Developed, one representative stood, his species known for their mathematical precision. The humans have devastated an established galactic power in less than 8 weeks. This isn't development, it's domination. The started this conflict, another representative pointed out. By the Council's own laws, attacking an undefended colony is grounds for censure, not annihilation. The arguments began again, species taking sides. Some defended humanity's actions as justified response. Others worried about the precedent. A few openly feared that humans might target them next. The chamber doors opened, walked in flanked by Admiral Crane and Ambassador Tours. The room fell silent. Had not been in this chamber since the day he walked out 2 months ago. Now he returned, not as a petitioner, but as a representative of a power the galaxy had learned to take seriously. Ambassador said carefully, "We did not expect you." "I'm sure you didn't," moved to the center of the chamber. "But since this council seems intent on discussing humanity's actions, I thought we should be present to explain ourselves." "You owe us no explanations," began. "No, we don't," agreed. "But we're going to give them anyway, so that there's no confusion about where humanity stands going forward." Admiral Crane stepped forward. She activated her own display showing footage from New Haven. The chamber watched in uncomfortable silence as the images played. The attack, the burning buildings, the bodies of children being pulled from rubble. 3,217 people died that day, said quietly. 1,400 were children. We asked this council for help. We begged for intervention. We requested basic protection that any civilized government should provide. She turned to face the assembled representatives. You gave us nothing, not even honest sympathy, just empty words and dismissal. The council's position was that it appeared to be a territorial dispute. A representative tried to explain. A territorial dispute? His voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Is that what you call the deliberate targeting of civilian population centers, the bombing of schools and hospitals? If your people were slaughtered while your leaders begged for help, would you consider it a dispute? The representative had no answer. Took over. After that attack, humanity from the council. We realized that we could not rely on this body to protect us. We realized that in this galaxy, strength is the only currency that matters. So you went to war, said. We responded to war, corrected. They attacked us first. They killed our people. They did it because they thought we were weak, because you all thought we were weak. Ambassador Tours stepped forward. She was older than, with gray in her dark hair and the kind of calm demeanor that came from decades of diplomatic experience. In her hands, she carried a data slate. "We've prepared a detailed timeline of our diplomatic efforts," she said. "It documents every petition we filed, every request for assistance, every appeal we made. Over the past 2 years, we made 23 formal requests to the Council regarding aggression." She activated the data slate and the timeline appeared in the air, a long list of dates and summaries. "The Council tabled every single one. Some of you told us we were overreacting. Some suggested we were exaggerating the threat. Many simply ignored us." "We did not ignore you," a Council member protested weakly. "You did worse than ignore us," replied. "You made us irrelevant. You established a hierarchy where humanity's concerns didn't matter, where our safety was less important than maintaining your comfortable status." She looked around the chamber. "Now we're establishing a new status, one where attacking humanity has consequences, real consequences." A species representative that resembled a large insect clicked its mandibles nervously. "Are humans threatening this council?" "No," said flatly. "We're explaining reality, the learned a hard lesson about humanity. We're offering the rest of you a chance to learn it the easy way." "And what lesson is that?" asked. "That we wanted peace," said. "That we tried every diplomatic option available. That we exhausted every peaceful means of resolution before we responded with force. And that when we do fight, we fight to win." She pulled up new displays showing the current state of the war. The Confederation's military capability is functionally destroyed. Their economy is in collapse. Their trade routes are blockaded. Their industrial base is gone. We accomplished this in 8 weeks with minimal human casualties. The chamber was absolutely silent now. Representatives stared at the displays, many of them clearly doing calculations about their own military capabilities versus humanity's demonstrated power. "We're not showing you this to brag," said. "We're showing you this so you understand the choice you made when you refused to help us. Every installation we destroyed, every ship we disabled, every economic system we disrupted, all of that could have been prevented if this council had simply enforced its own laws." "What do you want from us?" asked quietly. "We want justice," replied. "Commander R and the leadership who authorized the New Haven attack will face trial for war crimes. The Council will establish a formal tribunal with the authority to hold species accountable for attacking civilians. The Council has no precedent for such tribunals." "Then set one." His voice was hard. "Unless you want humanity to become the galaxy's enforcer, because right now we're the only ones who seem willing to actually stop atrocities." "You cannot appoint yourselves as galactic police," a representative objected. "Watch us," said simply. "We from the Council remember. We're no longer bound by your rules. If you want us to operate within a galactic legal framework, then create one worth respecting." Looked troubled. "Ambassador, what you're describing would require fundamental changes to how the Council operates. Species sovereignty has always been." "More important than innocent lives?" interrupted. "That's the choice you're making, Overseer. Either establish real accountability for war crimes or accept that humanity will handle these matters ourselves." The chamber erupted in argument again. Some species supported humanity's position. Others worried about surrendering sovereignty. Many simply looked frightened at the prospect of human intervention in galactic affairs. While the Council argued, a side door opened. Guards entered, escorting a prisoner. Commander R, his scales dull and his posture defeated, was brought into the chamber. The room fell silent again. "We captured Commander R 3 days ago," explained. "Our Special Forces team infiltrated the capital and extracted him. We're bringing him before this council to answer for his crimes." R looked around the chamber, seeing the shock and fear in the representative's eyes. He understood now. The humans hadn't just defeated his military. They had demonstrated capabilities that terrified the entire galaxy. "Do you have anything to say, Commander?" asked. R's voice was barely audible. "I underestimated them. We all did." "Yes, you did," agreed. "The question now is whether the rest of the galaxy learns from your mistake." He turned to address the Council. "Humanity is offering you a choice. Work with us to establish real justice and accountability in galactic affairs. Create laws with teeth, tribunals with authority, and consequences for those who target civilians. Do that, and we'll operate within that framework. And if we refuse, a representative asked. Then we handle our own security, said. Any species that attacks human civilians will face the same fate as any entity that threatens our people will be dealt with. We won't ask permission. We won't seek council approval. We'll simply act. That's not how civilized species conduct themselves, someone protested. Laughed the sound bitter. Civilized? You sat in this chamber and let them murder children. You offered thoughts and condolences instead of justice. Don't lecture us about civilization. Raised his hands for silence. The council needs time to deliberate on these matters. You have 1 week, said. After that, we'll announce our own judicial proceedings against R and anyone else involved in the New Haven attack. Other species are welcome to participate, but we're moving forward regardless. 1 week is not enough time. You've had 30 years to take humanity seriously, interrupted. 1 week is generous. The 3 humans turned and walked toward the exit. The guards brought R along with them. As they reached the doors, paused and looked back. For what it's worth, Overseer, we don't want to be the galaxy's enforcers. We'd much rather have a functioning council that actually protects its members. But we will never again trust our safety to words and good intentions. The cost of that mistake was 3,000 lives. He let that sink in. Choose wisely. After they left, the council chamber remained silent for several long moments. Representatives looked at each other, seeing their own uncertainty reflected back. Finally, a species representative who rarely spoke stood up. Her kind was ancient, predating the council itself. Perhaps, she said slowly, humanity is offering us something valuable, a reminder of what this council was supposed to be. They're dictating terms to us, another representative objected. No, they're holding up a mirror, she replied. And we don't like what we see. A council that allows children to be murdered while we debate procedure is not worth defending. Are you suggesting we simply accept their demands? I'm suggesting we consider why their demands are necessary in the first place. She looked around the chamber. How many similar situations have we dismissed over the centuries? How many species have suffered while we hid behind bureaucracy and sovereignty concerns? Considered her words. You're right, this is an opportunity, a painful one, but an opportunity nonetheless. To do what? To reform, to create the accountability mechanisms humanity is demanding, to prove that the council can evolve. And if we don't, looked at the displays still showing the devastation humanity had inflicted on then humanity will fill that void, and they've already shown they're quite effective at it. The debate continued for hours, but something had shifted. Fear was giving way to understanding. Resistance was changing to acceptance. The galaxy was learning a difficult lesson. Humanity had tried to join the galactic community as peaceful partners. They had been dismissed and attacked. Now they were establishing new terms for engagement, backed by military power no one had expected them to possess. The question was whether the galaxy could adapt to this new reality, or whether humanity would be forced to reshape galactic order on their own. Either way, the age of dismissing human concerns was over. New Haven had seen to that, and the ashes of military installations served as a permanent reminder of the cost of underestimating humanity's resolve. In a private conference room, and met to review the day's events. Do you think they'll establish the tribunals? Asked. They don't have much choice, replied. Either they create legitimate accountability or we become the enforcers by default. Nodded slowly. The irony is we really don't want that role. Managing galactic security would be a nightmare. But we do it if necessary, said, because the alternative is letting more New Havens happen. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, pulled up her notes. I'm preparing draft language for the tribunal framework. If they're smart, they'll use our foundation and modify it to fit council procedures. And he'll stand trial, said firmly. Along with anyone else who authorized or participated in the New Haven attack, justice first, politics second. Stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city beyond. You know what bothers me most about all this? What? That it was necessary, that we had to demonstrate overwhelming force just to get basic respect. She turned back to them. What does that say about the galaxy? That it's not as civilized as it pretends to be, replied. But maybe we can help change that. Or maybe we just scared everyone into compliance, said. 6 months after the war ended, Hayes stood in the memorial gardens of New Haven and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and red. The colony had been rebuilt, though it looked different now. Stronger. The buildings were reinforced. Defense systems hummed quietly beneath the ground. Emergency shelters could accommodate the entire population in under 10 minutes. But no amount of preparation could bring back the 3,000 people they had lost. The memorial was simple but powerful. 3,000 stones arranged in a spiral pattern, each one engraved with a name. In the center stood a statue of a mother holding a child, their faces turned toward the sky. Flowers grew between the stones, carefully tended by volunteers. Walked the spiral path slowly, reading names. Some she had known personally. Others had been strangers, just faces in the crowd. Now they were all remembered together, their lives cut short by violence that should never have happened. She stopped at one stone in particular. Emma Wright, age 7. Her brother Danny had been at school during the attack, had survived while his sister had been at home with their mother. Both had died when their house took a direct hit. A man approached and stood beside her. Danny Wright, now 18, no longer the frightened boy who had lost his family. He placed fresh flowers by his sister's stone. "Governor," he said quietly. "Danny, how are you doing?" "Better than I was," he looked at the memorial. "Some days are harder than others." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Danny had stayed on New Haven, working in the reconstruction efforts. He had become a skilled engineer, helping rebuild the infrastructure his sister would never see. "I heard you're working on the new school," said. "Yeah, should be finished next month," he smiled slightly. "We designed it to withstand a direct hit from weapons. Kids will be safe there." "That's good work." "It's necessary work," he turned to her. "Governor, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Was it worth it? The war, I mean. All the installations we destroyed, all the damage we caused. Did it balance out what happened here?" Considered the question carefully. "Nothing balances out what happened here, Danny. Nothing ever will. Your sister and all these people should still be alive." "But they paid for it." "They did. Commander R and his officers are in prison. The government paid reparations. Their military is under council oversight." She looked at the memorial. "But that doesn't bring anyone back. It just ensures it's less likely to happen again." "Less likely, but not impossible." "No, not impossible. That's why we stay strong. That's why we remember." They heard footsteps on the path. A civilian approached hesitantly, carrying his own flowers. Had been a merchant before the war. Now he lived on New Haven, working with the human reconstruction teams. Many humans had been hostile to him at first, but his quiet dedication had slowly earned respect. He stopped several steps away, clearly unsure if he was welcome. Danny said, his voice neutral. "I hope I am not intruding. I wanted to pay my respects." "The memorial is for everyone," said gently. Moved closer and placed his flowers at the base of the central statue. "I lost family too, in the human counterattacks. My brother served on that Captain Brooks destroyed." Danny stiffened slightly but said nothing. "I was angry at first," continued. "I thought humans were monsters. Then I came here and saw this place, saw what started the war, and I understood that my brother died because our leaders made terrible choices." "I'm sorry for your loss," Danny said stiffly. "And I for yours," looked at Emma's stone. "Your sister." "Yes." "She was 7. "Yes." Was quiet for a long moment. "There is no justification for what happened here. None. My people were wrong. Our leaders were wrong. I cannot undo that, but I can honor these lives by helping ensure it never happens again." Danny studied his expression unreadable. Finally, he nodded. "I'm working on the new irrigation system tomorrow. Could use help if you're available." "I will be there." Watched the exchange with cautious hope. It wasn't forgiveness exactly. It was something more practical and perhaps more important. It was two people choosing to build something together instead of nursing hatred. At the Galactic Council headquarters on the planet Nexus Prime, sat in on his first official council session since humanity's return. The chamber looked the same, but everything felt different now. Overseer called the session to order. "Representatives, today we vote on final ratification of the War Crimes Tribunal framework. Ambassador, would you like to address the council?" Stood 6 months ago, he had walked out of this chamber in fury and despair. Now he returned with humanity's position fundamentally changed. Thank you, Overseer. The tribunal framework before you represents months of negotiation and compromise. It's not perfect. No legal system is, but it establishes something the galaxy desperately needed: accountability. He pulled up the key provisions on the display. Under this framework, any species that deliberately targets civilian populations faces investigation and prosecution. Leaders who order such attacks will be tried. Those found guilty will be imprisoned. Governments that support such actions will face economic and diplomatic consequences. This applies equally to all council members, including humanity, a representative noted. Absolutely, agreed. We're not seeking special treatment, we're seeking equal protection under law, something we should have had from the beginning. The vote was called. The framework passed with 87% support. It was a stronger mandate than it expected. After the session, approached him privately. Ambassador, I want to apologize. The council failed you and your people. We let bureaucracy and politics blind us to real suffering. You're right, you didn't sugarcoat it. But you're trying to fix it now, that matters. Do you think humanity can truly work within this system? Or will you always see us as the ones who abandoned you? Thought about New Haven, about the lives lost because the council did nothing. But he also thought about Danny and building something together from the ashes of war. Trust is earned, he said finally. The council has a long way to go, but this tribunal is a start. Show us that it works. Show us that justice actually means something here. Do that and maybe we can move forward. I hope we can, hesitated. The galaxy is different now because of what humanity did. Some fear you, some respect you, many are uncertain how to engage with you. Good uncertainty is better than dismissal. Fear can evolve into respect. But the old dynamic where humanity's concerns were irrelevant, that's gone forever. On Earth, Admiral Crane met with her senior staff to review the post-war military posture. Dr. Vincent Park presented the latest analysis. We've established joint training programs with 17 species, he reported. They're learning human tactical doctrine. We're learning their advanced sensor technology. It's been productive. How are they handling human combat concepts? Asked. With difficulty, Vincent admitted. Most species find our approach to warfare disturbing. The idea of acceptable casualties, total war, economic targeting. These concepts don't exist in their military tradition. But they're learning. Yes, more importantly, they're understanding why we fight the way we do. When you come from a world like Earth, where survival has never been guaranteed, you develop a different relationship with conflict. Captain Jason Brooks spoke up. Sir, I've been working with a defense coordinator. He told me something interesting. He said before the war his people saw combat as an extension of politics, a tool to achieve specific goals. But watching humans fight taught him that war is what happens when all other tools fail. That's a fair assessment, agreed. Did he understand why that distinction matters? I think so. He said it explained why we were so reluctant to fight but so devastating once we did. Because for us, war isn't a choice we make lightly. It's a failure we commit to absolutely. Nodded slowly. That's the lesson I hope the galaxy takes from this. Not that humans are dangerous, but that we're dangerous because we tried everything else first. Do you think that message got through? Vincent asked. To some, others just see the firepower and destruction. Time will tell which view wins out. Commander Lisa Grant entered with new reports. Admiral, we have confirmation that the last prison has been inspected. All war crimes suspects are accounted for, and proceedings are beginning next month. Good, make sure our legal team is prepared. These trials need to be fair and thorough. Understood, though I have to say some of the defendants seem genuinely remorseful. They're not all like R. I know, that's why we're having trials instead of executions. Justice requires us to judge individual actions, not collective guilt. Looked at the strategic map on the wall. Blue markers showed human fleet positions, now reduced to defensive deployments. Red markers for active threats had virtually disappeared. We won the war, she said quietly. But winning isn't the hard part. The hard part is building something better from what we broke. At a small on the rebuilt streets of New Haven, Danny Wright met for lunch after a long day working on the irrigation system. The partnership that had started with awkward cooperation had evolved into something approaching friendship. I received a message from my family today, said. My mother wants to visit New Haven to see where I've been living. Danny tensed slightly. How do you feel about that? Nervous. She lost a son in this war. Coming here, seeing what our people did, it will be difficult for her. Will she blame us? I don't know, I hope not. I hope she can see what I see. That this place represents both the worst and best of our species. The worst in what happened, the best in how people are rebuilding together. Danny ate quietly for a moment. My mom's sister is coming next month, first time she's visited since Emma died. She says she needs to see the memorial. That will be hard for you. Yeah, but maybe necessary. Everyone processes grief differently. She needs to see where Emma is remembered. They sat in comfortable silence, two young men from different worlds, bonded by shared loss and shared labor. Do you think there will be another war? Asked suddenly. Danny considered. Eventually, probably. The galaxy is too big and complicated for perfect peace. But maybe the next war will be delayed longer. Maybe the Council's tribunals will stop some conflicts before they start. And if they don't, then humanity will respond. We proved we can, but I don't think we want to. The cost is too high even when you win. You sound like Governor Hayes. She's smart, lived through hell and came out still believing in building rather than destroying. Danny looked at his friend. That's the real strength, you know, not the weapons or ships. The choice to build when burning would be easier. In the council chambers, a petition was being heard from a young species facing harassment from a more powerful neighbor. Watched as Overseer listened carefully, asked questions, and took notes. Other representatives engaged seriously with the petitioner's concerns. When the petition concluded, announced that the council would investigate immediately and send mediators to the region. It was a small moment, simple bureaucracy, but it represented something profound. The council was listening, taking action, treating a young species' concerns as legitimate. Caught's eye across the chamber. The overseer gave a small nod of acknowledgement. They both understood what this moment meant. After the session, Ambassador Torres joined for the walk back to the human embassy. That went better than expected, she observed. The council is learning, slowly but learning. Do you think we did the right thing? The war, I mean. Thought about New Haven, about the 3,000 lives lost, about the installations destroyed and the enemy soldiers killed, about Danny and working together and the memorial gardens at sunset. I think we did the necessary thing, he said finally. Whether it was right or wrong, history will judge, but it was necessary. The council wouldn't have reformed without seeing what humans were capable of. Those tribunal laws wouldn't exist without the war forcing everyone to confront the consequences of inaction. So the ends justified the means. No, the means were justified by the failure of every alternative. That's different. Smiled slightly. That's a very human way of thinking about it. Maybe, but it's honest. We tried peace, we begged for justice, we exhausted every option. When none of those worked, we made a choice. Live as victims or fight as equals. And now we see if the galaxy learned the lesson, if the council keeps its promises, if the tribunals actually deliver justice, if species think twice before attacking civilians. They reached the embassy steps. The building flew both Earth's flag and the new banner of the United Human Colonies, a design that incorporated symbols from all human settlements. What about us? Asked. What did humanity learn? Looked up at the flags. That power without restraint is tyranny, that justice delayed is justice, and that sometimes the only way to secure peace is to prove you can win at war. He turned to her. But most importantly, we learned that we're strong enough to choose mercy after victory. That might be the most important lesson of all. As night fell across the galaxy, humans and aliens worked together on dozens of worlds. Children played and rebuilt cities. Families mourned their dead at memorials. Diplomats negotiated treaties. Military officers shared tactical knowledge. Engineers built better defenses. The war had changed everything. It had cost thousands of lives and left scars that would never fully heal. But from that devastation, something new was emerging. A galaxy that took humanity seriously. A council with actual accountability. Laws with teeth to protect the vulnerable. And the understanding that peace required eternal vigilance from those willing to defend it. On New Haven, Hayes stood at the memorial as the last light faded. She placed her hand on the central statue and whispered the names of those she had lost, not in anger or despair, but in remembrance and determination. They would not be forgotten, their deaths would not be meaningless, and humanity would ensure that no other colony suffered what New Haven had suffered. That was the promise carved into every stone in the memorial garden. That was the oath humanity had sworn when they declared war and showed the galaxy the price of going too far. And that was the legacy that would endure long after the ashes of war had been swept away by time and rain, and the patient work of people choosing to build instead of burn.